All right, Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago played out a 0-0 draw at the National Stadium on Tuesday, their second encounter in 3 days. The matches were organised to help the teams prepare for important CONCACAF Nations League games starting next week. Let's get a recap from our reporter, Brian Pitter.
Having defeated the Reggae Boyz for the first time since 2013 in Montego Bay last Saturday, the Soca Warriors were looking to complete the double at the National Stadium on Tuesday. Both teams fielded slightly different 11s from Game 1, with both coaches still assessing the quality within their squads. Dejon Richards was revelling in his first start for the national team and quickly picked up where he left off from Saturday's encounter, running at the TNT defence in the opening 10 minutes. His free kick, however, not testing goalkeeper Marvin Phillip. Richards was again involved later on in the half, this time creating an opportunity from nothing, bulldozing his way past a school of defenders to test Phillip for the first time. The Jamaicans continued to dominate possession in the second half, but were still unable to convert. Jordan Fletcher and Colin Anderson unable to net the best of the opportunities. TNT increased their tempo towards the latter stages of the match, with substitute Jovain Jones forcing a reaction out of goalkeeper Jamali Waite. Ryan Moore, who scored the lone goal in Saturday's victory for the Soca Warriors, then tested the 24-year-old shot stopper a few minutes later. No goals then, but satisfaction for Angus Eve on the unbeaten campaign.
I thought we put on a good professional performance from a defensive standpoint until we made the changes in midfield. Some of the guys who played the first game, we really saw that the composure came into the team, and we started to pass the ball and we started to create some chances and cause the Jamaican team some problems. Other than that, we felt that we played a European type team today. They were hitting a lot of long balls into the strikers. They were trying to play the balls on the flanks, and we stood up well to that sort of European tactic. So all in all, I thought it was a good exercise for us. On aggregate, we won the series 1-0.
A successful campaign for TNT, not so for Hallgrimsson's Reggae Boyz, who failed to score in any of the two outings.
Probably it's more stress than quality. Some players are playing their first national team matches now in the international stadium. The stadium they have been wanting all their lives to play in front of a crowd. So no, I think it's more stress than lack of quality.
Both teams will be in action again next week in the CONCACAF Nations League. The Soca Warriors will be away to the Bahamas on March 24, with the Reggae Boyz facing Mexico at the Azteca on the 26th.
All right, so Trinidad and Tobago, they won the first international friendly 1-0, and of course yesterday's match ended in a 0-0 draw. So Ricardo, I start with you first. Your assessment of what you saw. We're looking back at the games, from an overall point of view. You can describe Jamaica's performance.
Last night, lacking in imagination up front, failing to do consistently enough some of the basics of the game. Hitting their passes. They were slow in build-up, which I think allowed the Trinidad and Tobago defence to comfortably organise themselves and get behind the ball consistently and make it difficult for the Jamaicans to create chances. I don't know, looking at the 90 minutes of that game, if there was a clear-cut opportunity for Jamaica. Yes, maybe you had some 50% chances, 60% chances, but not out and out full chances, I would say. So I think overall, Jamaica will look back at the two games, and definitely Coach Hallgrimsson would be disappointed with what was produced over the two matches, and definitely based on what I saw last night. From a Trinidad and Tobago standpoint, they will be very happy of the 16 players that they used last night, the 11 that started, and of course the substitutes. Only 2 of them play their football overseas. All the others play in Trinidad and Tobago. Jamal Williams and Aubrey, who came on as a substitute are those who are playing outside of Trinidad at the moment. So they would be extremely happy with what they would have achieved over the 2 matches, and I think the Jamaicans will be quite disappointed.
Lance, before the match, of course, I wanted to speak to the Trinis, the people in the Trini camp, just to hear what they were thinking. And of course, at the start of the match, they felt as if, there was a discussion about the surface. So they were sure that Jamaica would score in Kingston. They mentioned, on the surface, to the fans, the fact that, they'd have the crowd support. There are costs on playing at the National Stadium. So they felt as if that would be in their advantage. We looked at all 90 minutes and no goals were scored.
Well, I think it was a good tactical performance by Trinidad and Tobago and head coach Angus Eve, who had pretty quickly summed up what the Jamaican strategy was. There were long balls played down the centre toward the forward men, and I'm not sure if the starting roster for the Jamaican team would benefit from that tactic, and the Trinidad defence line prepared themselves well for that and pretty much nullified the Jamaican advances. Too many long balls going up front toward the front players, when I think a lot of the Jamaican players, based on their skill set, may have preferred shorter passes, closer passes to their feet, as opposed to long balls floating into the box. So good strategy from Trinidad and Tobago to keep Jamaica scoreless in both games. I could add to that, from the standpoint of the Jamaican failure to score, the roster that the Jamaica team ended up using would be a completely new roster in many ways, and there are a lot of new players in the Jamaican setup. So as far as familiarity and chemistry would have been concerned, maybe the Jamaicans just weren't ready for that kind of assignment. Angus Eve had his unit working with for several weeks in preparation for this fixture, both of course having international matches coming up before the month ends, and the Jamaican roster will, I suspect, look completely different for their game against Mexico. And the TNT roster may not look all that different, especially with news coming through that 2 of their key players who weren't here, Levi Garcia, who plays in Greece, and Kevin Molino, who plays in the MLS, both had injuries in the past week. So very satisfying for Trinidad and Tobago. And, they've gone through a lot in their football for the past 3 or 4 years. And I think, reason for TNT football fans to be encouraged by the 2-match outing in Kingston and Montego Bay.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned to do, Lance and Mariah, over time, because this is something that we've seen with the Reggae Boyz setup quite a lot, where you will have a completely different squad for almost every match they play. Of course, there are different reasons for that. Of course, this was not a FIFA window, so it would have been difficult to get your very best players. And so it was an opportunity for the local players and a few others who are looking to show off their quality to come into the setup, to work with Coach Hallgrimsson and to prove to him exactly what they can do. But one of the things I've learned to do over time, Lance, is to look at each Jamaica team, or each time the Reggae Boyz send out a team to play, to judge that team in a very specific way.
On that day.
On that day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because as you pointed out, Lance, when we go to the Azteca, the squad is going to look completely different from the one that we saw here against Trinidad and Tobago. And I suspect the quality will increase in terms of the players that will be brought in, and that team will look a lot closer to what a frontline Jamaica team should look like. In my estimation, this is probably a C team.
Yeah, this was just, remember, it's an international friendly. It's not as if you all were competing for anything. You didn't have your best players. So I think it's understandable what we saw. Coach had some players that didn't even play with the team. This was their first time joining the squad. So it was expected.
What wasn't expected, though? So, for example, for me, the game was really poor last night.
Worse than the weekend game?
I didn't see as much of the weekend game.
Yeah.
But from what I saw last night, it was pretty poor. Now, I was quite disappointed because I'd heard a lot about the weekend's game, and I thought to myself, okay, with a better playing surface, because the playing surface was blamed quite a lot for the disappointment of the quality of the game on Saturday.
Yeah, well, in the preview yesterday, we all accepted that this game should have improved significantly because the quality of the surface had improved.
Yeah, but there were just some things I saw, and I don't know how much of it is Coach Hallgrimsson. I suspect as well you have to give Coach Hallgrimsson some slack, right? Because these players would, for the most part, be completely new to him.
Yes.
He's pretty much just come to Jamaica. He would have very limited time with them, even though he has said he's gone to a few of the clubs and watched them train and so on. He would not know these players as much as he would know the frontline players, where he would have access to videos because they're playing on the international circuit. They've played for Jamaica before. So maybe a little slack there. Having said all of that, you have to give Trinidad and Tobago and Angus Eve a lot of credit, because they came clearly with a game plan and they executed that to a T. My own opinion, the Reggae Boyz made it easy for them to execute the game plan, but they had the game plan and they executed it well.
Yeah, what about your assessment of Dejon Whisper starting? Of course, a lot of love for him once he took the pitch. You know, Jamaicans, of course, every time he got the opportunity, would be cheering him on. As I said, a lot of love. What did you make of his performance at the game?
What I would say for now is that he didn't look out of place. He didn't look out of place in the first game on Saturday, and he didn't look out of place last night. I think hit the right upright once in the first half. We can talk about the service that was given to him. We can talk about whether he was played in the right position over the two games, whether Coach Hallgrimsson might have been better served going to a 3-5-2 and having Whisper on one of the wings as opposed to having him in a front two. So we can have all of those discussions, but my overall assessment of him is that he didn't look out of place. He looked as if he belonged at this level, which, to be honest, does not surprise me. Yeah,
my report card would slightly be better than yours, Ricardo. I think he more than didn't look out of place. I think he looked comfortable.
Yes.
And based on the fact that he's only a teenager playing at this level for the first time in his entire career, this level as by way of seniors, because he has had overseas trips before in good setups. I think his future looks really, really bright.
Yeah. Can't disagree with you there.
All right, team. Well, what we will be looking at is we'll be keeping a close eye on both teams, because they have football coming up for them. And, of course, looking to see how these teams improve. Let's take a quick break and come right back. We have a lot more to discuss.
Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.